So over the last good few years on Animal Jam Classic, there has been a large, loud group of people critiquing how the game is and kind of this current state of the game. And if you've been watching this channel for over the past few years, you probably know that I am, a part of that as well. And I'm not shy to critiquing updates and stuff if I feel like it is fair and just. And while I think recently it's been getting a little bit better, there are a lot of things in this game that I think Animal Jam theoretically could work on and fix that would be very simple for them to do, even with considering how hard it is to update Animal Jam Classic on like a technical side of things. But this list of things are just mainly things that they could theoretically do and work on that I think a lot of the players on the game would enjoy, and honestly probably would trade off on these things over something like a brand new clothing item for the first time in like a few years. But without further ado, let's just hop into it. Now first here I want to talk about animal rotation, so animals that are currently available to be bought on Animal Jam Classic, and honestly both games are pretty guilty of this, and that is the fact that not enough animals are actually available. So we have the spooky snow leopard, skunk, autumn coyote, direwolf, toucan, cheetah, polar bear, eagle, and the arctic wolf. I don't think the arctic wolf has ever left the store, by the way. But these animals, 9 animals in total, obviously not a whole lot in my opinion, because back in the day there would be at least 3 or 4 pages filled to the brim of animals that you could buy at any time, and yeah, they would still have rotations consistently coming in and out. And I get with how they are doing updates now that they want to kind of recycle content at a slower pace so they kind of have more to spread out over the year or something, but I feel like even with new players kind of coming to the game and only experiencing these things for the first time, I think they would like a larger variety to pick from, and also in consideration with old players on the game that just want to get every animal at some point, they wouldn't have to wait upwards of a year or two for a certain animal to come in rotation. I think a prime example of that is raccoons. They were gone for almost 2 years, I think it was, before returning again. And even something like I know in 2023 where pigs were even gone for upwards of like 6 years before they actually returned to the store again. And I think it's definitely like something they can easily implement. Obviously it's like just changing the dates of when they come into stores and whatnot, so it's not that big of a hassle. Speaking on more about rotation with dens here. Dens are probably the worst example of this happening, and there's a lot more dens here right now anyway in the October season, but usually there is probably just 2 or 3 available at one time in dens, and they've gotten better at it. As I said, recently they've been pumping out more dens recently with stuff like the garden treehouse. There was the schoolhouse den, and then also the spooky castle being the newest den they added to the game, and they returned art gallery as well. But there is a lot more dens on the game that they haven't returned in so long, and a lot of the time they will just leave this kind of section on the diamond shop neglected, where it'll literally only be 2 dens at a time if it's not a kind of holiday season type of thing like Halloween is happening now. And trust me, as somebody that is like a kind of a completionist when it comes to this game and I'm wanting to have like at least everything, dens is the worst culprit of them not actually having them all available at a consistent rate. It's even worse than how animals rotate, because there is even less rotation when it comes to dens. And not only that, some of them are available in these bundles as well, but a lot of the time it'll be the kind of same dens a lot of the time as well, which, as I said, kind of the same argument goes with the animals rotation. New players, they're going to be experiencing these things for the first time, but I'm sure they would love a bigger variety to choose from, in addition with old players wanting to collect all the old dens and also having that variety to choose from. And to be fair, there's some more for gems even outside of the diamond shop dens, but these are kind of the standard dens that are always available usually, with the exemption of some of them kind of getting rotated out for seasons type of thing. But I think my point largely stands. Also, I don't know why the Warm Sand Sanctuary is only available in this shop. It's not available in the diamond shop. Don't know why that is, but pick up on that here because maybe they forgot to take it out. I don't know. Now this next part, it's kind of something they've been doing more recently, as I kind of briefly mentioned one of the dens in my previous point, but the schoolhouse den was in stores, which was previously from the back to school party, I'm pretty sure it's called, where they took that den map or that map and turned it into a den. Pretty much they took out all the decorations and accessories and then put it in as a blank den. And kind of similar to this den here I'm in right now, which is the Garden Treehouse it's called, where it is like a normal treehouse den, but it also has the attributes of the leap year party, where there is a big slide and then, you know, tree branches growing out even more, which isn't available in the normal treehouse den, where it is a lot kind of blander and a lot less going on anyway. You know, there's not the whole slide going on. But I say this because there is actually a good few parties in the game anyway that, you know, have a lot to them, a lot going on in their parties, or like specific maps in these parties that are only used for these parties. Like even the wolves only party right now, I'm pretty sure that actually uses a volcano den. Indeed it does, but you know, it has this kind of effect to it. It's like an extended version of the volcano den as well, with this, you know, little pathway up. This is something they could definitely just take out these little, you know, totems and statues and stuff and all the decorations on the inside and turn this into a, you know, better version of the volcano den and, you know, throw it into a diamond shop bundle or something. And I think people would genuinely still love it. And not even just that, you know, stuff like the paradise party might be a bad example because that's kind of like a huge map, but something like, you know, the cloud party or the bunnies only party, which I know for a fact aren't used as normal dens. I think the cloud party might be a bit more hard to turn into a den, given that it's, you know, a flying animal party type of thing, but the bunnies only party especially is something that they could definitely turn into a den, and it's never been anything but a party. I think the same with the horses only party. It's like an extended version of the old barn den, or like a flipped version of it as well. That's something they could work on as well. And in all honesty, if they want to add like new content to the game, dens is the easiest thing they can do, because these are technically just images. Rather with something like an animal, there is 3D modeling that goes into it, and then they convert it to like a 2D model and have to make thousands of animations for it and everything, and a whole convoluted kind of thing. But for dens, it's just like an assortment of images. So it's something they could definitely do, and it would be a lot easier to do. And I think a lot of people would like the addition of new dens, or even just party maps turned into dens as well. Now, one of my most recent videos on the channel was about recolors and how they're kind of improving on them, but you know, Animal Jam has the kind of tendency to slip back onto really gross recolors after a series of good recolors. Primarily their rims recently have been kind of good, and I've seen some of the future ones, and the most latest one I know about, I'm not going to spoil, but it's kind of like a boring kind of recolor, or a boring item nonetheless as well. Talking about recolors in general, you see a lot of people give it flack and complaining about it, and I don't think it's the idea of recolors that are bothering a lot of people. Probably a minute sum anyway. It was bothered by just recolors and not new items, which I totally get that as well. But I think a large people are frustrated with it is because some of the recolors are just terrible. This is not really a good example because, you know, I've seen some people enjoy these and stuff, and the tail item is pretty good, and these you know, the black and orange scheme I quite like actually as well. But the biggest culprit I see for these bad recolors are usually these diamond shop bundles in the past, where they just bring out the most hideous color combinations on the most random items and then put it in there. And the thing is that I really question anyway, is why are they even making these? Because nobody likes the items in the first place, nobody uses the items, and nobody likes the colors of them, and nobody's gonna trade for them either. And I like to call them fodder items. That might be a bit mean, I don't know, but personally I just don't see the kind of hype into just throwing out recolored items just for the sake of having some items to recolor. I get with how they kind of have their update schedule for Animal Jam Classic. It's like, you know, they try to have these kind of recolors at a consistent rate to at least appease long-term players, I guess. But I think a lot of people would more enjoy the simpler recolors of like something that is even a solid color, or like 2 solid colors or 3 solid colors. That's very generic looking, but I feel like people would enjoy those more than something like a really bad, gross, puke colored item that nobody's gonna wear. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head because there's just so many, but I'm sure I will find some fitting ones to edit on the screen and post anyway. Now, as for this next part, as well as the next few parts anyway, I feel like I'm a bit iffy on whether they could actually implement a lot of these things, given that it's more technical than the past few, where they could just change around dates and stuff, or give out certain things type of thing, or make better recolors, for example. But this is about achievements. Now, I've made a video talking about getting every achievement in the game. I went through every achievement and kind of which ones were the hardest to get. I also mentioned near the end of the video some of the unreleased achievements or unused achievements that have been in the game. Some people have obtained them, but obviously through illegitimate means, meaning they hacked them. But it got me thinking ever since that video, like there's a lot of things in the game they could actually give achievements for, and there's even some of those unused achievements that they could use to actually give out to people to actually make them, you know, play the game more or play the game longer anyway. So for example, for those unreleased achievements, I know there was an achievement for depending on how long you were actually a member for. That's something they could easily do. You know, something for the amount of animals you have, I'm pretty sure was one of them. I think there was like a few other random ones as well that they could probably repurpose for certain things. Like I think there was base visits, which was probably an early concept that they ended up turning into animal only parties, which they could even do for that, like 10 horse only party visits type of thing. I don't know. But even something like, you know, completing the journey book, which I feel like is a very neglected thing now, because I feel like everybody's already done it or done most of it, or is just completely uninterested in it. But they could do something like you complete your journey book to its full extent, you get an achievement for it. It was something like that. It's very easy for them to implement, I feel like. Or even, you know, buying one of every single animal on the game, given there is so many animals to pick and buy over the game, and, you know, they get rotated around a lot, sure, but, you know, having every single animal, I feel like in itself is a pretty big accomplishment as well. Or even stuff like giving achievements to kind of features in the game that go quite underused, like the jammer wall. I can't click on it here because I'm not a member on this account, but, you know, something like this where it would actually make people engage more with certain parts of the game, or even just the game in general. I feel like, I think giving like an incentive to it, like achievements, would make people engage more of it. And, you know, maybe we could like implement something like giving a prize after you get a certain amount of achievements. Like that's something I do believe they have something similar to that with Play.Wild, where you do a certain amount of you know, mini games, like you hit a certain quota in a mini game, like you get a certain score, you get like a 5 sapphire, 10 sapphire kind of interval rewards, where they could definitely do something like that for Alamo Jam Classic, where they maybe give out diamonds, or just something similar to the journey book where you get an item at the end, where you get like a themed item regarding an achievement. I think that would be pretty cool. Now, the inventory system, this is something I have a pretty big gripe with, because I have a lot of accounts with a lot of items on them, and a lot of them I have to manually sort because there's no way to sort by items on your inventory. So if you don't know, you can sort by head item, neck item, back item, leg item, tail item, and then by the oldest item in your inventory. So something like this, pretty much. That's how it works. But the old inventory system used to have something similar, but it also had another section called sort by item, where it would sort by every item pretty much. So just imagine I have, you know, fox hats. They would all be sorted into the inventory like this, where they're all next to each other pretty much. And when you actually scroll through your inventory, it looks a lot more pleasing to look at. Whether now, if you were to try to do this now, you would have to get an alt account, trade to your alt account the items you want sorted in a certain order, and then trade it back. And it makes it a whole lot more of a hell than it needs to be, especially if you get like another item of that kind or another variant of that item and you want to sort that as well. But even in addition to this, with the inventory system, I think this was something I talked about in an older video about features being removed from the game, and this is clothing items not showing up in the bottom left of your little change your look preview, which it used to show. And in all actuality, they can still implement this. I think this was just a bug that they left unfixed, because there are certain parts around the game that you can actually still see this in somewhat capacity anyway. There might be like one item that is missing from the thing, but you can actually still see it. And I think mini games actually show it. As you can see here, I'm wearing my jumper down here in the bottom left. I'm not wearing the little head bow I have going on, but as you can see anyway, it's still something that it works, you know, even for these newer items that kind of came out after the fact that this feature was already broken pretty much. Also, yes, I did jump onto this account with items on it because I wanted to show this for this video. Also, I lost, by the way. I gave them the win though. I just needed to get out of this game. But no, what I'm saying I feel like makes sense. As well as, you know, I think one I want to talk about as well that we'll just kind of slot in here is inventory slots. This is something they can do. I don't know if it's like a server limitation or something, why they haven't increased it at all in a few years, but I think especially with the amount of recolors they've been doing on the games at the rate they have been going at, and if you were somebody that wanted to collect every item or a lot of items, especially for something like the Wild Weekend, I know this was a big complaint when they did that spike recolor Wild Weekend a couple months ago, was the fact that you wouldn't be able to fit a lot of them in your inventory if you were to buy every single item. And I don't imagine they intend, you know, when releasing a lot of these items that like, oh, somebody's gonna buy every single one of these, but there are gonna be completionists on this game that will want to, and I feel like they should, you know, at least unlock more inventory slots for those kind of players. You know, there's probably very few people in this game nowadays anyway that kind of reach this limit of 1,000 items, like this random ult account. I know it has over 500 items, but I don't think it's ever gonna reach 1,000 because I don't use it that much anymore. Same thing with den items. I think den items is probably more at suffering from this, I guess, as well, because some of the dens I see nowadays are very complex looking. You know, they use like the way layers work and, you know, trying to combine it to look like a whole different item entirely sometimes, which it looks insane, but you know, that eats up at, you know, den slots as well. And even placing every item in den, I think, you know, you have like 200 or 300 spaces limited. I don't know why that's a thing when, you know, for something like plushies, you can't collect every single plushie in the game and then place them all in a den because you'll run out of den slots. You'll have to split it into like 3 dens. I don't know, maybe that's a bad example, but that's just an example I know because that's something I've done and had to split into 2 accounts because of it. This part of the video is probably longer than I anticipated, but inventory slots, inventory in general, I think needs a bit of a rework. Now this next part of the video I won't go too in depth as well because I've already made a video talking about this subject in general, but like some of the broken features in the game, obviously in my ideal Animal Jam would be obviously fixed. Stuff like the host your own party, this doesn't work anymore. As you can see, this is a slot that is reserved for parties hosted by players, and there's nothing here because, well, mainly because people don't host parties anymore, but the reason why they don't is because it doesn't work. I kind of speculated it had something to do with the game's internal clock maybe on why it's broken, because I think there was mentions of something after midnight, the party system like kind of breaking for some reason. I don't remember exactly, but I mentioned that in my video as well. I might have mentioned this, the kind of thing with animal lists and pet lists, where if you have a certain amount of animals and you try to open somebody's player card and you try to view them all, it'll just crash your game. Now I don't think I'll be able to find an example here of somebody doing this because there's probably very few people in this game that have like too many animals to the point where it's going to crash your game, but I think pets are the biggest example of this, where it will freeze your game if you have too many pets, pretty much. Like you just saw my game freeze a little bit there, but you know, if this person had like another 2-3 rows of pets, it probably would have crashed my game. So stuff like that anyway. There's probably a lot more broken features that would be worth mentioning, but I feel like these are the kind of biggest problems now anyway right now. The last 2 about the broken lists anyway, especially party thing, I don't think people are big fans of that anyway, but figured it's worth mentioning nonetheless. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are things I think Animal Jam theoretically could fix right now. If it came to like a perfect Animal Jam, this is probably still far from it in my mind. Obviously, you know, new content would be a big one if, you know, we were talking about my perfect Animal Jam, but you know, maybe that's a whole different subject for another video. Maybe you guys let me know, but we'll wrap it up here, guys. Make sure to subscribe with notifications on if you guys want to be notified on future videos, as well as videos just like this one. Make sure to leave a like on it if you did enjoy as well, and let me know what you thought in the comments section below. What are things you would like Animal Jam to implement that you think they could anyway, with given how hard it is to update the game in a large scale? Do let me know in the comments. Let's have a discussion. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.